All right, so in the last video, we finally took care of the inner wheel well fabrication, and it came out way better than I was expecting and way better than the other side, which kind of sucks. But now we're ready to start prepping the body for welding the rest of the quarter panel on. So we're gonna use angle grinder with some 180 grit, 120 grit. And we're gonna clean up all the spot welds that we drilled out all around the perimeter of the rear quarter section. So just start grinding. And immediately break it apart. Oh my God, now it's stuck in here. It's a great way to start a video. All right, now we're gonna switch to one of these roll-lock discs, I think that's what they're called. We used the 120 grit to get down all the sharp spots from the leftover spot welds. And this is mostly just to remove all the paint and other junk that's left over. All right, we got all the mating surfaces cleaned up and smoothed out. The reason you have to do that is sometimes the spot weld leaves like chunks that stick out and it's not flat, and that keeps the new panel from seating properly. So everything's cleaned up, and we also cleaned up the rust that one of you guys pointed out in the comments. It was actually like super visible when you put the new panel on, like the rust was like poking through. It looked really bad. Luckily it was just surface rust and cleaned up perfectly fine. The other thing we did was straighten out a lot of the panels. When you're drilling them out, a lot of times when you don't hit the entire spot weld and there's still like little pieces that are like stuck together, you pry it with that flat blade thing, and that can distort the panel from you know, prying back and forth. So the other thing we did was straighten out and make sure all the mating surfaces are flat. And we did that with, oh, there it is. Just a little hammer and dolly. So support the panel, whack, whack. And just do that anywhere that you can see that you bent it out of shape. And it should be good to go. Actually, we have a little spot right there. That's better. So just like that, all the way around, any stuff that you bent out of shape. Down here, we can't really do that. So luckily, there's not too much there's like one that's a little pushed in from pressing with the drill, but should be fine. It's not like that bad. The worst spot of this is this back corner. That's like the rustiest part of the whole car. It's like super thin back here. Like there's like actual rust on this panel. Like that stuff, that dark stuff that's not cleaning off. Also tried to straighten it out, but it, like I said, it's super thin. And it just kind of keeps getting more wobbly. So we're just gonna wait till like we have the rest of the panel on here and just sandwich it together. The main thing we're trying to do right now is get everything painted and move on to the next panel. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so just like we prepped the car, we're gonna prep all the mating surfaces on the new panel. So just go around all the perimeter, everything that's gonna get spot welded together. Grind all the paint off. Not grind, just, you know, scrape with the little Scotch-Brite disc. I'm not sure if we need to do both sides, but at the very least we need to do the inside parts that mate together with the car. So we'll start with that. All right, now that we have all the mating surfaces cleaned up on both the quarter panel and the car, we're gonna apply some weld-through primer to all the bare metal areas and go from there. All right, so now that we have everything prepped, we need to start drilling all the holes for our spot welds. And to do that, I'm just gonna use a small drill bit and a block of aluminum just to support the panel. I had actually done this a different way on the other side, and it's kind of one of the things I screwed up on. So I've seen body shops use like hole punchers for sheet metal to make each individual hole because it's a lot quicker. So I bought one, but the problem was that the holes that this thing leaves are super quick and everything, but they're kind of huge. And I found myself having to like do multiple passes on each hole to get it to, you know, weld out properly and fill in all the way. And that translates to more heat and more warping and more grinding and just more of a pain in the ass. This thing didn't work on the edge of the door though. And so on the other side, I tried this, and these holes are a lot smaller. And I found this works a million times better than the hole puncher, because you can just like aim your welder straight down the center of the hole and just hold the trigger down and it'll melt the surrounding area. And you still end up with like a good 8mm size spot weld, but you don't end up with all the warping and trouble filling in the hole that's already 8mm to start. So I'm gonna do it this way, even though it's gonna take way longer, but I think it'll come out better in the end. So let's get started. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is make a backing plate for our butt weld here. And usually what most people do is like take a section of the quarter panel that you cut and sandwich it in here. But the way that this C-pillar tapers, it doesn't really fit like you'd want it to. Like you really have to like cram it in there, and then at that point we don't have a whole lot of meat on this side. I think what I'm gonna try to do is just remake this shape in the 18 gauge that we got for the patch up the fender flares. So yeah, let's try and do that. All right, so we're gonna use our little bootleg press brake here to try and make some of those bends. All right, so I ended up using the vise more than the little press brake thing, but I think we got it pretty close. Looks good to me anyway. So let's see if it fits in here a little better than that one. Yeah, so now we at least have some meat on both sides. A slightly bigger piece also helps to like mitigate your heat input too, because this piece is thicker and wider, and all the heat's not only being concentrated on the super thin exterior piece. So I think it helps. So we'll probably just like scuff this up a little bit before we start welding, but I think we're pretty much ready to go. I'm not gonna make one on this side because there's not a whole lot of room for one, and the gap is, I left the gap a little smaller between the new panel and this one, just so we could just do a normal butt weld without any backing. So this should be fine. But this is the most important one because this will be visible permanently on the exterior of the vehicle. This one gets hidden under like some trim and stuff. So even if it comes out ugly, that's not super crucial, but this one has to be like absolutely perfect, or you will be able to tell that the car's been messed with, and we don't want that. We want it to look nice, clean, and original. Yeah, let's get started trying to put the panel on, I guess. All right, after much hesitation. I think it's finally time to fit the panel on for the last time. Still feel like I'm forgetting something, but I can't think of what. I kind of feel like this end sits a little high, but it's bottoming out on every one of these surfaces, so they can't really go any lower. Also, it might be that the doors just sagged over the years. Not really sure. Because if you nudge the door up a little bit, it looks significantly better. I don't know. I'm gonna say it's most likely because the doors sagged over time. Because everything else looks like it's lining up pretty well. Okay. Should also, I guess, try and fit the taillight before we finalize anything. Looks about right. Let's see how our taillight looks in here. There's a whole video coming on these taillights, by the way, but we have to use them right now to mock everything up. There we go. It's a little bit of a lip here. So that most likely needs to come in more still. Top looks really good. So yeah, that's most likely is good. But the side of the panel definitely seems like it needs to come in more. Got a little bit of a lip here, which I don't think is supposed to be there. Also, our spot welds aren't quite lining up, so this needs to come in, which doesn't really feel like it wants to, but I don't even know where to start. I feel like this is gonna be the most trouble to deal with, so I kinda wanna start here, but the B and C pillars are like the most important part. Okay, so my anxiety is starting to get the zoomies and I'm second guessing everything, so we're just gonna put that in the vault. I got most of everything to line up pretty well. This back section I'm not happy with. Like, this portion seems like the quarter panel's too far in because the edge of this isn't lining up with this edge. There's like maybe a 16th gap between these two. And then the panel itself seems to stick out too far compared to the taillight, but compared to the bumper, it's like slightly too far out. So I don't know. I'm gonna chalk it up to everything not being like securely bolted down, and we're just gonna continue. So this stuff's all looking pretty good. We got both of these edges lined up pretty well. This is the main thing you wanna keep an eye on with this butt weld, is making sure this plane is exactly on this plane, like they're parallel. I don't think parallel is the right word. Whatever word is supposed to go there, that they match. And same thing for this plane, because the last thing you want is for like this whole panel to be like shifted down or up. So just make sure these match and these match. The face, once you get these two, the face should match pretty closely. Like, we can tell this section right here is like exactly, this top portion right here for whatever reason seems to be a little high, but it'll get filled in with weld and we can like grind it down, so it's fine. The edges on the very exterior are lining up pretty well, so that all looks good. All the spot welds are like pretty flat against the structure of the car. So yeah, let's just start welding.
Warning, flashing lights.
All right, I think we can start tacking this section up. This top portion seems to have stayed put. This bottom one, I feel like it moved a little bit, but it's not much. I'm gonna start filling this gap in and then just like move around in between, because we don't want to concentrate too much heat here. So space your tacks, you know, an inch or two apart, and then carry on to other stuff, or even just like take a break or whatever, come back, put tacks in between all your tacks, and then just keep repeating that over and over again, as long as you need to, really. The other side, I left it for a couple days, just taking breaks in between, just making sure this was like not getting hot. So just take your time, that's all I can say. It's feeling kind of spattery, so I think probably like put our greasy mitts all over it while we're handling it, and that's interfering. So anytime that happens, just clean it again and it should help. Yeah, now it's nice and crisp and immediate. That's a nice clean weld. If it sounds like, you know, Friday night after Taco Bell, it's probably dirty, clean it. I don't know if we mentioned it in the last episode, but I picked up these welding blankets from Harbor Freight. They're like 20 bucks a piece, and they're freaking lifesavers. Like, just all the junk that it's collected that would have like burned into our carpet or seats, worth their weight in gold, for sure. So pick some of these up, because they make your life a hell of a lot easier. Because for this, we're gonna have to hold the door open while we get the door jamb here. In my shoe, really? Alright, so this is a good example of what I was talking about regarding making the holes for your spot weld too big. These are the same size as the spot weld cutter, because this is the original panel, and these were about 8mm in diameter. And you can see how difficult it is to keep trying to close it up, as opposed to the 3/16 ones that we've been using that fill in with one single pull of the trigger, I guess. I mean, I think this is coming out a lot better, because the affected area that's getting fused is about 8mm. It's just more manageable than starting out with an 8mm hole and trying to fill that in. Yeah, I think this way works better. Okay. We've pretty much finished welding the B pillar, C pillar, and pretty much the whole perimeter around there. The only stuff that's left is this back taillight panel and the bottom up toward the wheel well. For this back section, there's a few different ways you can do it. I was watching some Okubo Factory's videos, and this is like all they do in Japan is like these conversions. And I noticed that they don't drill out the spot welds on this panel. They actually cut it off. And I thought that was interesting until I got to this part. So the reason they don't do that is because, for example, on this lower section, you would be left with those giant like 8-10mm holes to try and fill in with your welder if you were to drill out from this side. But if you cut the panel out, because you know you would be throwing this away if it was the original GTT panel, you can then go in from the back and grind the leftover of this panel off, and then you're left with an intact taillight panel. From there, you can just drill your smaller holes so you can just manage the welding a lot easier. So that's one tip that I learned that they didn't really teach anyone, but I noticed. I have it tacked in place on this top corner and a couple of spots here. So we just need to work our way down. There's like a lot of layers down here. So I have a lot of clamps holding everything together. I marked out the holes that were here in the new panel, and then I went and drilled our smaller hole wherever I marked that. So now we just line up the Sharpie marks on this old panel. So now we have like a 2-stage spot weld there, because we can't get around drilling these spot welds out because they're like sandwiched in between everything. So you need to drill these out to get the panel out from under it. So weld these out, and then once this is done, we can move all the clamps to this bottom section, because this bottom section needs to be held together quite a bit too. So home stretch, almost there. Okay, we're finally done welding. Took forever, but now we can start grinding all the welds down, particularly the ones that are gonna be where the windows go, because those are probably gonna get in the way of the window seating properly. And of course our B and C pillars, which C pillar is the most important one. So I'm gonna use one of these rounded floppy discs. They're kind of expensive, but I just really like these. You get better like control over what you're grinding. Actually, I should probably put a mask on. We're gonna do a lot of grinding, so it's actually gonna wear some PPE for once. Yeah. All right, I think we're done welding, and I finally got this to the spot that I'm happy with. We ended up with a little bit of a low spot here, and I resorted to trying like filling it with weld, which didn't go very well, but I think it's still gonna work out, because you kind of want a little bit of a low spot to fill it in with glazing putty. So I think it's still gonna be fine, but what I should have done was probably try and support the backing plate that we made from the backside, because I forgot that on that side I had shoved a screwdriver and lodged it to where it would push the plate up even with both panels. I didn't do that on this side, and it kind of fell back a little bit on this edge. It is what it is. It looks great up until like the halfway mark, and then it looks kind of ugly, but like I said, it's fine. It's pretty minimal. Like, so we ended up with a little bit of a low spot here, which is fine because you want, you know, somewhere for your glazing putty to fill into. But yeah, this whole corner is a little lower than I'd like. But from here down, it's perfectly flush. So a little bit of a hiccup, but I think it's gonna be fine. So now that we're done with everything, we can finally start mocking it up and see what it's gonna look like. All right, so we got the taillight and bumper mocked up, but I'm not quite happy with this lower edge here where the three pieces meet up. If you look at it from the back, there's a very, very slight ledge here, which kind of seems like this bottom piece is supposed to come out more. The top portion looks really good. This looks like perfect, and it feels good all the way up to about here, and then you can start feeling the quarter panel stick out farther. So what I'm gonna do is finesse those mounting points a little bit. So we're gonna unbolt the tail light again. Then we're gonna get us a round file, and we're just gonna nudge all these a little bit to the right. That one's actually already quite a bit slotted. All right, let's try it again. All right, that looks 100% better. So now let's move on to the trunk. All right. Our gaps are not great, I'll be honest. Particularly this side. It's like really tight toward the taillight here and pretty wide toward the back. Passenger side looks pretty damn good, actually. Also a little on the tight side, but it's consistent. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Doesn't look bad. It's a lot of work for a wide body kit. And actually, we're still missing a piece. So this looks like it attaches from the side, which is interesting. Most of the time they attach to the back piece right here, but since it got pushed out, I guess we're attaching it back there. So we need to find some 10 mil bolts, I'm guessing. All right, that's gonna be it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching. I think it looks great. I don't know if it was worth all the amount of work and headache and stress and anxiety that I went through, but it looks phenomenal. Just for reference, in case you guys were curious, these wheels are 18 by 9.5 plus 22, and they look sunk. So we're gonna have to do something about that eventually. So that's gonna be it. Thank you guys for watching. And remember, always do your best.